What's up? What's up, guys? My name's Brandon. I'm with Athena, one of the founders. We're going to be bringing on Jungle Boys pretty quick here. What we're going to be doing is we had a post a week ago that went over the difference between feed EC and media EC. So what I did was I called Ivan, and he had a lot to say about it, and I wanted to bring him in, and here he is. What's up, guys? So obviously we did that post last week, the difference between feed EC and maintaining EC in your media, and that's why we kind of got this whole thing started. But I wanted to start off and talk about your guys' new facility that you got coming online. I think it's Cudahy.
Yep.
What, like, how many lights, like, how many rooms, like, how'd you guys set it up? Do you guys feel comfortable talking about it?
Sure. I'll let Roach give the rundown since he's our project manager over there. That'll give you a little bit of rundown of Cudahy and where we're at on it right now.
Yeah, so Cudahy is basically two-story facility. It's got 8 flowering rooms ranging from about 70 to 80 lights, and a 260 light veg and genetic holding area, mother area. So fully recirculating runoff. So we take all the runoff, collect it, clean it, sanitize it, and then refeed it back in through the Netaflex. It's definitely the most technological facility we've built yet. Excited to get plants in it for sure.
So is that recirculating new for California? Is that active yet, or is that?
It's not active yet. I think it's 2021, I believe, where it's Department of Fish and Wildlife or the Water Board or both of those two are requiring all cannabis facilities to be recycling their runoff and not just dumping everything down the drain.
Yeah, 2021. Now, it's got 8 rooms. How many lights in each room?
70 to 80.
Okay. Is there now I go through a lot of your facilities, you know, through the factory and different facilities like that. They seem to have a similar amount of rooms based on how many weeks, right? So you guys plan on taking one room down a week?
Yeah, that's kind of the goal with the 8 rooms. Basically, you'll pull down a room every week. Be kind of a smooth kind of schedule.
Transition. Nice. Cool, man. Well, good job on that. I saw, 2 weeks ago, Ivan posted that nutrient room. Is probably the prettiest nutrient room I've ever seen. So good job, Roach. Freaking
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's get into the questions. The first question, you know, we want to go over that post that Athena did a week ago. What the difference between feed EC and EC in your media, as far as that would be your runoff as well. Can you talk about and give us some insight on how you guys, your SOPs on that and what you guys do?
Yeah, so there's 2 different ways to look at it. You can look at it, when I speak, I'm trying to speak in growers terms. I'm not trying to make it too complicated for everybody. So if you look at, there's 2 ways to water your plants, right? Let's say you have a rockwool cube, right? Let's take a 6-inch cube, for example. You can water it, and each time you water it, you can get runoff, right? So think of it, every time that you're watering that cube, you're resetting that cube, right? So if I'm doing a 3.0 EC and I'm getting runoff, that cube, the EC inside of the cube is not building as much, right?
Yep.
Now, the way that we do it is, and I'm not saying this is the right way because we've done it both ways and both ways work really great and had really good results with it, right? Is you can stack that cube. So imagine you take little tiny waterings throughout the day and you're giving them short, tiny bursts of watering, 8 mLs, 10 mLs, 7 mLs, whatever your dripper's rating is what we do, right? So imagine in a 12-hour flowering period, after the lights come on the first hour, now every hour we're giving them tiny little bursts of water. Well, what's happening is now we're stacking that nutrient inside the cube. So now that 3.0 EC that we originally fed Now, a couple weeks later, that 3.0 EC is a 5.0 EC, a 6.0 EC, right? But the thing that you have to be careful with is now when you start hitting those dry backs, right, and the plant starts drying out, right, there's not any water, and there's not a lot of water inside that cube, right? So now you're teetering on that really fine line of burning your plants, right, and not having enough water for your plants to take up. But you also get amazing results doing that, right? You can really sit there, you can stress the plant out, you can see things happen that you've never seen happen before, you know? And we feel that not one way is better than the other necessarily, right? I feel like if you have people that are not as experienced and not there every single day and watching everything and have monitoring on every single cube and you know, you have someone at your facility 24 hours a day, feeding with a little bit of runoff is a lot safer. You know, I don't want people to take this and everybody go run out and start putting, you know, a 7.0 EC inside their cube because the Jungle Boys told us to do it. You know, we're not telling people to run out and do this. We're just sharing what we do. So what ends up happening is if we put a feeding chart out there and we say, hey, start out at a 2.0 EC, right? And someone starts feeding a 2.0 EC and they have a bunch of runoff, and then they come to us and they're like, hey, it's not enough food for our plants, right? You guys are
that's what we've been seeing.
Yeah, you guys are setting us up for failure. Our plants are turning yellow. I hate feeding charts. You know, I've always said this, you know what I mean? Because first off, it's all strain specific. You know, some strains eat a lot more than others. Some need very little nutrients. Some need a shitload of nutrients. You know, so for us, we try to give a general guideline. And if you're giving your plants a bunch of runoff, you know, and you have a heavy eating strain, a 3.0 EC, a plant can take all day long. No issue.
3.0 to 3.5 EC with a high amount of runoff, because that's what your media is maintaining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All day long, no problems, you know. But then there's also the flip side of that, right? Let's take a strain like strawberry shortcake, right? Strawberry shortcake, we would never feed a 3.0 EC to. It just it won't take it up. It won't eat it. You know, so there's always that small amount of strains that no matter what you tell someone to feed, it's going to be too much. And then you take something like Topanga or Wi-Fi 43 or a strain that eats a lot, and you tell someone to give it a 2.0 EC, they're going to come to you and be like, it wasn't enough. I didn't give my plants enough. You know, so that's why when nutrient companies put out feed charts, it's just a baseline. It's to get you to where you need to be, but depending on your runoff and depending on how you're stacking your cubes and your watering, that's what tells you whether or not you should be feeding high or low, you know? And of course, we don't want to go down a whole nother rabbit hole, but then there's a whole other, there's some other stuff that we're playing with, feeding way higher than that and doing a lot more dry backs, but you really have to be on your game. You know, it's like, I always tell people, you know, you go to the batting cage and someone throws a softball at you, you hit it, you're like, I'm the man. You know, if someone throws 100 miles an hour fastball at you, you're like, yeah, let me get the fuck out of here, I suck. You know, and that's what happens when you start stacking these feedings and you start pulling back waterings. You know, you can easily destroy a crop. You can easily fry a crop. You know, but if you're on your game and you know what you're doing, you know, you're going to hit numbers and you're going to see things that you're going to see, you know, THC levels and trypsin levels and proteins. You're going to see that stuff just go through the roof, you know. But it's a very fine line, and we don't want to go and put some feeding chart out there and say, hey, guys, start stacking your cubes at a 3.0 EC, you know.
And then getting too much buildup and locking everything out.
Yeah.
100%, because their runoff's not sufficient. You know, I was over at the factory, a week ago, Roach, and I saw that all your tanks were at a 2 EC. Now, understanding that the genetics are getting affected by the EC value differently, are your water shot volumes changing based on genetic to build EC higher or lower based on genetics in that room while you're feeding a 2 EC? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so usually we're not really changing the runtime to alter the EC in the block. We'll just adjust how long the dry down period is.
Okay.
For like a simple answer. You could,
Now,
if you wanted to lower the EC inside the block, you could use a longer runtime, and that
yeah.
would therefore give the plant more runoff and then lower the EC. Or you could use a shorter runtime if you're really trying to stack that EC to where you get no runoff, and then that goes back to the stacking technique.
But you guys aren't changing your run times. You're just changing the frequencies.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
time in
So
between seasons.
now, given that the factory was running at a 2 EC baseline for pretty much all its flower rooms, though, depending on genetic of that room is depending on how you're going to monitor how high that EC value goes in that block, depending
Yeah,
on that genetic, while
yeah,
using a 2 EC.
yeah.
Because that's the thing. You're not feeding a genetic more. You're just monitoring that raise inside the cube versus giving it, full blown 3, 4, 3.5 EC.
Yeah, and that's really the only real reason we're able to do that is because of the substrate monitoring that we have. If we didn't have the rockwool monitoring and the EC and the water content, it would be, a full-time job for several people to be checking runoffs on all these rooms and strains. But having it in like an app where you can kind of see water content and EC right there on all the rooms helps a lot.
100%. Now, do you have an optimum root zone temperature, and does that equate to relative temperature of the room at all based on the root zone temperature, or what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I mean, root zone temperature is for sure relative to what the room is. If the room's warmer, I mean, your root zone is going to be warmer, but it also goes into what your feed is, what your feed temperature is, what your nutrients are coming into the plant at. If you have like a really long run and it's up in your crawl space and it's 120 degrees in your crawl space, and then your PVC is therefore heated up and your nutrients are
Yeah,
therefore heated up,
yeah,
you're going to raise your root temperature.
yeah.
So all that stuff is kind of taken into account, like on these build outs that we do as well.
Do you try to watch it, or what? I mean, what do you like to see a certain number? Do you like to see it not go over a certain number, or you're just kind of,
I mean, anything over 80 definitely isn't good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we air condition our irrigation room, so our water stays about like 67 degrees anyways.
yeah,
To
yeah.
70.
To 73, 74,
Yeah.
75. So our water's not really
I've
getting too hot ever.
I personally realize I don't really focus on water temp that much at my grows. I don't like to see it go over 78.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's pretty. But that was one of the questions that we had gotten. Now,
Yeah, I mean, if you're on a small scale and you can, really dial in your water temperature, I'm sure you'd see a little bit of a difference, but the biggest difference you're going to see is not letting it get too warm. I've seen large facilities. I know a couple of people that just had this issue recently where, like Roach was saying, they ran all their pipes up in the attic, and now their attic
yeah,
gets 120 degrees during
yeah,
summertime, and they're having all these issues, and they're like, oh shit, all this
yeah,
hot water sitting up there, and what's going to the plants.
yeah. I've done that before.
Yep.
So when we're talking about blended compared to pro, I know you guys were flowering some rooms over at 58 on blended, and then I know that the nursery is all using blended, right? What's your thoughts about the comparison? I mean, when would you use blended as far as compared to pro on a grow?
Yeah, I mean, it honestly just comes down to what our employees are comfortable using, right? So we have our SOPs for both of them, right? And some guys like mixing, a two-part right out of the bag, and some guys just feel more comfortable mixing a bottle, you know.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
for us, the guys are really good at what they do, and they've been doing it for a really long time, and they've worked under us for years, I mean, guys been with us 10 plus years.
Yeah.
If we have a grower that grows amazing cannabis, says, listen, I feel comfortable with this and I like what I do and I'm used to it and this is my rhythm and this is my routine and this is what I like to do, go ahead, do it. I think that it just comes down to the grower. you know, and what they prefer, you know, and budget wise too. You know, I know there's not a lot of difference money wise. You know, one might be
Yeah.
a little bit cheaper than the other one. You know, yeah, that's all it really comes down to. You know.
Now, this is a question that we get all the time. You know, do you so ever sometimes I'll be talking to people like, yeah, you know, this is how Ivan's running, this is how Roach runs it, you know, and they're like, come on, bro. Like they're adding other shit in there. Like I know they're adding something. They're gotta be adding some sweet
Yeah.
or an organic input or this or that. What's the real deal? Like what are you guys adding?
I mean, to be honest, we spent years and years and years adding a lot of shit to the reservoirs. You know what I mean? There was one time we were adding I mean, what was it? Fucking
16 parts,
16 parts,
all liquids.
all liquids. You know, we've been through it all. You know what I mean? No one has done more side by side comparisons, and I'm talking real side by sides. I'm talking taking thousands of lights and taking multiple rooms and doing multiple side by side comparisons with the same frames under the same lights. You know what I mean? Same room, same everything. You know, this isn't some one row. You know, things might look a little bit better because it gets a little bit light. No, I'm talking taking full 60 light rooms and doing full side by side. You know, multiple times, over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And every time we would take something out, and we would take something out, and we would take something out, and then when we get to the very end, to the real base of it, what we really needed, we'd always have the best results. Sure, there was one time that we had a great run, and you know that was this mythical run that everything lined up and all the stars lined up, you know. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, they just brought some Dosey killer in there right now that we do that I was just like, this is fucking unbelievable. You know what I mean? And a lot of things don't blow me away. This is fucking fire. You know,
Yeah.
and that was too far. You know, it was going to be too far. You know, nothing added. You know, we added claims, you know, and that's it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, we really do try to keep it simple. You know, we really do try to eliminate all those questions and errors and did this get added at the right time? Did they add too much of this? We've kind of eliminated all that, you know?
Yeah, I think seems like you guys are focusing more on your dry backs and your your dry backs to increase that terpene content and that THC versus thinking that an organic input of some sort is going to do it for you. Because if you were to talk to me 3 years ago and knowing what I thought I knew back then, I would say, hey, you have to add an organic input to get the terp content up. You know, but the more that I had kind of adjusted to just going with core grow or core bloom cleanse, the more I was like, whoa, like this is where it's at. So, Mycos, do you guys use any Mycos with your clones anymore? I knew that, you know, a few years ago you did. Are you guys using anything like that?
We did for a really long time, you know what I mean? And it might shave off a day or two, you know, it's just being real. You know what I mean? Like anyone made really good stuff, you know?
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that Michael Jordan stuff was fire, you know? But at the end of the day, shaving off a day or two, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We weren't really seeing the benefit for the extra work and everything. And was it really a day or two? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did we hit the dry back perfectly right? You know, we're not seeing that. We're not going from 14 days to 7 days, because if it was 14 days to 7 days, we'd be using that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but at the end of the day, you know, if someone's using something and they like it, we're not going to tell them not to use it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I used Caps Bennies for years. It was my go-to. You know what I mean? I'll still pull it out to this day if we're having issues and do a foliar spray.
Yeah.
You know, it's like magic in a bottle, you know, but do I use it? Yeah, OG Biowar, for sure.
Yeah.
Shout out to Cap. Yeah, but do I use it every single day in my grow? You know, do I soak every single cube with it? No, I don't. You know, but if I see something going on that I don't like, will I hit it with the foliar? Absolutely. You know, for sure. You know, so.
This is a big one. You know, IPM. So what's the SOP? What's the secret? Like, I mean, you got, how many facilities do you have? 8?
9.
9 facilities. How many lights right now?
Thousands.
Yeah, I don't even. I don't even know.
3,600.
Yeah, close to
I mean,
4,000 lights.
I mean, yeah, close to 4,000 lights. I mean, most people, you got to be like, bro, you got to be using Botanicard Max, Venerate, fucking. You got to use this. You got to use that. You know, what's your IPM regimen? What's your program? What does that look
Yeah, I
like?
mean, IPM is our go-to. You know, that's our go-to. It's what we've used for a long time. You know, and we've been trying to get it out to the public for a long. You know, this Brandon, we've been telling you like, dude, we need to get this out. We need to get this out. We need to get this out.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
um, but it just comes down to it goes to the same thing. You know what I tell people, if you're using something that works for you and you've used it for a really long time and you don't have issues, stick to what works for you. You know, all we can tell you is what works for us.
yeah.
You know, all we can say is, hey, listen, we run almost 4,000 lights in LA where we have to deal with a bunch of issues. You know what I mean? We got homeless people right outside the door, you know, and we'll also fog the rooms. We play around with heating the rooms a lot. You know, after each
Yeah, I've
run, we'll
seen
heat the
that.
rooms as hot as we can get them. You know, and when I say as hot as we can get them, 150 degrees plus.
Yeah,
You know,
I've
because
seen that.
because that temperature matters. You know, if you really look at the chart and what actually starts killing things, you know, you got to get the rooms really hot. You know, I mean, we've gotten the rooms so hot before that we broke the sprinkler heads before. You know,
Yeah.
so you got to be careful. You know, and I'm not talking getting your room to 100 degrees. I'm talking about getting your room to 150 degrees. What's the hottest
Yeah.
we've ever got a room to?
It was like 150 on the floor, 165 on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Jesus. Jesus.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
so what we do for that, and this is a really good tip for any grower.
Without plants. That was with not without.
Yeah.
There was no plants
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
room.
Don't put your plants in
I
there.
saw someone's comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no plants in there. That was after we tore it out.
So
Yeah.
you tear it in your room, and now all the plants are out, right? So anything that was airborne, any spores or anything that could have gotten into your room at that point is the time to heat treat your room. As fast as you get the plants out of there, as fast as you can heat treat that room, that's what you want to do. And when I say heat treat, 150 degrees, there's a number. I'll come back and edit this and get the exact number, but we shoot for as high as possible because you got to remember at 120, it doesn't go as like powdery mildew. Even if we don't, you know, if we never have an issue, we do this. We do this religiously at all of our
Yeah.
facilities. And the
Yeah.
way we get this is we shut off our air conditioners, we turn on our dehumidifiers because the dehumidifiers make heat, and we turn our lights up, all of our lights up to 100%, and we let the room bake.
How
You
long?
know,
How long usually? An
3
hour?
hours.
3 hours. Yeah. Yeah, and the
Now,
key is not doing it and going home and then coming back the next day when you're I mean we've literally had Schedule 80 melt on the wall because the room
oh
gets so
shit.
hot.
Oh
Yeah,
shit. Okay.
yeah.
So using the Athena IPM, look, are you using anything else other than Athena IPM to spray?
No, not currently. You know, I mean, we'll in our nursery we'll hit the moms with regalia every once in a while.
Okay.
You know, as a not as a drench, as a foliar. But our main go-to spray is IPM. That's our go-to. That's our, you know, you got to remember it's a drench. You have to drench the plants. You can't just go in the room and open the door up and spray a few plants and be like, okay, I sprayed my room. You have to saturate the plants, top to bottom. We get the stems. Those plants should be dripping.
Two
You
times
know,
a week? Two,
yeah, 2 times a week. I mean, minimum is 2 times a week. You know.
as a preventative, 3 times if you have a problem or whatever. Just like, yeah,
Exactly. I
what we
mean, if
wrote
you have,
down.
I mean, to be honest, if you have a problem, you know, if you're battling something like PM or mites or something, I'd hit it as often as possible. We'd hit it sometimes twice in the same day, you
Yeah.
know, morning and later on in the day. I mean, this is if you're battling something bad. You know, I mean, we haven't battled anything in years. You know what I mean? We keep really clean, sterile facilities. But if I came in here and I mean, I don't remember the last time I seen a spider mite. You know what I mean? But if someone was like, "Hey, we seen some mites or something," you know what I mean? I go to war with them. You know,
Yeah.
and I'd hit them hard. You know,
Yeah.
but heat treating with IPM, I mean, really killer combo right there.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's not very often when you talk to somebody at that scale and they say, hey, I use one thing. So people are just probably like, how is, and
Yeah,
that's,
I mean,
I had, the reason why is because I had the same reaction. You
yeah,
know, when we were developing it and going over all that stuff, you're like, bro, I use one thing. This is it.
yeah,
I'm just like,
yeah.
geez.
I mean, we'll bust out Sanidate 2.0, Oxidate 2.0. You know what I mean? We'll bust it
Yeah,
out,
like
and,
as a
and, and
clean,
we'll rotate every once in a while. You know what I mean? Just for
yeah,
peace of mind, so we're not using the same thing over and over again. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Uh, like I said, we'll use some Regalia on the moms just to boost their immune system early on. You know what I mean? But are we spraying Regalia in all the rooms all the time like we're doing IPM? No. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Um, I think that it just comes down to, like I said, if you're spraying something in your facility and you're not having any issues, stick to it.
Keep going with it.
Yeah, keep going with it. You know?
All right, SOP for cloning, that's probably, you know, maybe what EC value, and what cubes are you using? What do you like to feed EC value in your cubes? What do you like to maintain? Maybe possibly a initial drench EC, and
Yeah,
what do you use?
yeah. So we have what we call the nursery, right? So we have a nursery crew that handles all of our cuttings and our moms and all that stuff. And this is all stuff that we've done over the years, and we've kind of refined it, and we all do the same thing, right? So we have one major hub that puts out all of our cuttings for us and all of our moms, but each facility also does their own moms and cuttings. So imagine you need 10,000 cuts a week, right?
Yeah.
7,000 of those cuttings come from our nursery, and then you're responsible for your other 3,000 cuttings,
Oh,
right?
for every spot.
Every location.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that's how we run our locations, right?
Wow.
So,
What's the reason
so
behind that?
because all of our genetics aren't in one building. So if we ever have an
Gotcha.
issue, right, everything is
Gotcha.
protected. So each facility houses genetics, right? Let's say we had a fire or God forbid anything happened. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Somebody broke in and stole all of our genetics, which would be impossible to do because you're talking about thousands of lights.
Yeah.
But at least we know we have them backed up somewhere, and they're
Yeah.
not with some other random person that we don't know, or some tissue culture lab that we don't know what they do behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we kind of protect all of our genetics in house.
Gotcha. That's why. That makes sense.
Yeah. So right. So when I knew this question was going to come up, so I wrote it all down. So 3 mLs of Grow AB, right? 2 mLs of CalMag. That gives you an EC of 0.7,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
pH of 5.5, 5.7. So this is
Okay.
taking your initial pre-soak, right? You get your clone tray, you get your individual cubes, they're in a mat, right? We take that mat, right? 3 mLs A, 3 mLs B, right? 2 mLs CalMag, right? pH of 5.5, 5.7. We do 5.7, but I always say 5.5. Listen, if it's 5.4 to 5.8, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But everyone likes to know what we do. We do it at 5.7.
And grow down
We've played
AOK
around.
1.5s.
We've played, yeah. We've
Yeah.
played around with lower pHs, higher pHs. We've had great results with all of them. 5.7, 5.5 puts us right where we want to be at. Right.
Okay.
So now you've done your initial soaking. You plugged your cuttings. Now it's time to water them. Right now they're starting
Yeah.
to bust roots. It's time to watering.
How long do you wait? How many days you usually? I know it's all different, right? But usually unusual.
2 weeks to 12 to 10 days to 20 days.
Yeah, 10 to
First
20
watering.
days. 10 to 20 days, depending on the strain.
First watering.
Oh, no.
First watering.
Like 5 to 10?
5 to 10.
5 to 10. All right. Cool.
Yeah, depending if these ones dried out quick, they're busting roots fast. You can see them start coming out. You can't pull them out.
So
5 days.
Okay. Okay.
But it's also we grow so many different varieties, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of different strains, right? Some of them are 5 days. Some of them are 10 days.
Yeah.
So clone feed is 4 to 4.5 ml per gallon,
Okay.
right? 2.5 of CalMag, right? That gets you an EC of 1.1. And then same thing, pH 5.7.
Okay. Okay. Cool. No cleanse.
Say that again?
No cleanse. Is there a reason why not using
Yeah,
cleanse?
so we'll use cleanse as a dunk. We'll dunk the cuttings in cleanse. We'll use it as a foliar, right?
Okay.
And then after they start busting their roots, then we'll add the cleanse to it.
Okay.
And that's just like I said, that's what the nursery feels comfortable doing. And then
Yeah.
from there on out, it gets cleanse. All the moms get cleanse added to it. But that's the guys. This is what we do. This is what we feel comfortable doing. Hey, if I'm not going to tell you with the results that we get, and these guys are pumping up. I'm talking, 6,000 cuts a week, 10,000 cuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Per facility. I'm not going to tell them, hey, do something a little bit different. Try to tweak this.
Just leave it alone. It's not broken.
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone. I tell that to a lot of people.
But we foliar with cleanse all the time. Well, that was another thing. I guess that would be part of our IPM too. We'll. The only thing is you do have to use a lot of it. That's the only downfall. It's like,
how many ml do you have off the top of your head?
300 and something mLs. It's like 300 and something mLs per gallon, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So, but it's also, if you're having an issue or you see something that you don't like, it's a go-to. Start hitting things with it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have any. It's not harsh on the plants.
Yeah, real quick on when people are asking questions in the comment, we'll try to get to some of the questions in the comment.
We got Taylor right here. She's writing them down.
Cool. If there's a bunch of spam, then it's not even worth it.
Yeah, if you see any good ones, shout them out, and then we'll just go over real quick. So we got SOP for cloning. We got the EC value on that. CO2 controllers and regulators. I mean, you feel comfortable talking about what you're using in your rooms? And
yeah, sure. So we use big, giant CO2 tanks, liquid CO2. And we have a company that comes and they fill our CO2. So like we're at the factory right now for here, we have like 8 or 9 giant CO2 tanks. And that feeds each room. We're required to have a high CO2 monitor in every single room. And from there, all we're doing is a simple CO2 regulator. Was it a Titan, cheap Titan regulator, that's turning the CO2 on and off, But yeah, liquid CO2. We used to use gas, and we had issues with propane, and then natural gas, and then bottles are really hard to fill. So we use a service that does big, huge vats of liquid CO2.
What about controller-wise? What do you guys on the controller?
Well, we used to use Sentinel, which they made the best controller, but they stopped making them for some reason. Out of the blue, they just stopped making them. Most of our facilities are Sentinel. They've been running for years, and we haven't had any issues. But
since we haven't been able to get them, we just got the Titan ones, and then Cultivation on Metafin.
Yeah.
Oh, Metafin.
Yeah, but that's new also. It's not something that we've done in the past. So Cudahy will be all on Metafin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so you guys are using GrowSense right now?
Yes, and then so we've used GrowSense at all of our facilities, and then Cudahy.
We're gonna go with Arroyo.
Yeah, we're gonna do Arroyo.
You guys gonna do the Arroyo at Cudahy? Test it out.
Yeah. Full climate, full monitoring over there.
Is there a reason why you're looking at doing that, or looking at making that transition? Is more available, more info? What do you?
I mean, just the flexibility we have at that facility, we can pretty much have every single solenoid in the building get a different nutrient and or feed and or time per day. Like just the full flexibility that we have at that location compared to some of our other ones. We've basically taken like everything we've learned at these past 8 facilities that we built, 9 facilities that we built, and we put it all in the Cudahy. So definitely kind of like the top technological one that we have, with kind of the most kind of tech fancy stuff, you could say, short range, full monitoring, full recirculation, Yeah, everything on floats.
It's the masterpiece. It's
Yeah,
Roche's master plan.
yeah.
You know, awesome. No, cool. Yeah, I think that's gonna be big. You know, and then I get a lot of this all the time. CalMag with the Pro line. Everyone's trying to add CalMag to the Pro line. Do you guys ever add CalMag while using Pro line?
No, that's insane. No, I don't know why. No, don't do it. I don't understand why someone would do that. You know, I get it. You know what I mean? CalMag, CalMag, CalMag. You know, people are
Yeah,
trained and they get it instilled in their head. You know, but all that stuff is built into the line. You know, we
yeah,
spent a lot of years testing and sending shit off to labs and R&Ding it and going over and over and over with it. That line is figured out. When you can ask Brandon, I don't let anything get by me.
yeah,
Nothing got by these facilities that wasn't tested 100%. And we went through everything a million times and trialed and errored it over and over again before we said, this is the one, release it. You
yeah.
know,
No, I
no
know.
one has
I
spent
know.
more money on R&D than we have. I promise you that.
Yeah,
I could have
100%.
retired a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. So no, I'm glad we got that out of the way because we're getting guys all the time trying to add CalMag to the Pro line. I'm like, just don't ruin it. Like it's
Yeah,
perfect. You know, the ratios are perfect. You got to
yeah,
pay attention to your shot volumes and your EC and your media and how you're going to do that. But as far as what it is, just don't add anything to it and mess it up. Yeah, that's kind of
yeah.
my philosophy on it.
So we're clear with everyone. There's two lines. There's a liquid line and there's a powder line. The liquid line, yes, you add CalMag. The Pro line, the powder line, you do not add CalMag. It's already built in.
Yeah, 100%. Did you take down some questions?
Yeah.
There are some good ones you want to.
I'm finishing one more.
All right, so this is some questions that just come up. Temp plus VPD in flower. What temp and what do you like to run your temp and humidity in flower for VPD?
I mean, we kind of just follow that VPD chart, right? As long as we can. We push it, we push the VPD chart as long as we can, right? So if you look at that chart, you know, the way everybody builds their facility is a little bit different, right? So if you look at that chart and 78 degrees and 69% humidity puts you right in that sweet spot, that's that number you should stick for. You know, for us, our temperatures are a little bit warmer. You know, we run our rooms more warmer and more humid earlier on, veg and flower, you know, but you see other people and they have all these humidifiers in their room and they're trying to get as much humidity in their room as possible. The
Yeah,
way we
yeah,
build and we design our rooms is we don't need to do that because we built it within the air conditioning system, within the walls. We make it so our rooms can get humid when we want them to be humid, and when we want to pull all that humidity, we can pull all that humidity out. You know,
gotcha.
so if I tell somebody, hey, we run our rooms at 85 degrees and 70% humidity early in veg and flower, and they're trying and trying and trying to get there, and they just can't get there, and they're chasing those numbers, you know,
Yeah,
I'd rather see somebody say, hey, I can get to that same sweet spot, because if you look at the VPD chart, that's not the only number that gets you there.
yeah,
You know, so maybe I'm at 78 degrees and I'm at 65% humidity. Well, we're actually doing the same exact thing. You know, so when
yeah,
people ask what's your temperature and humidity, it's a great question because it's very important. You know,
yeah,
but you might not be able to get your temp and humidity where I can get my temp and humidity at. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to look at the VPD chart and you need to be right within that sweet spot.
yeah. Cool. What week do you? I know, ideally we don't like to spray into flower. I mean,
Yeah.
with IPM, but what week do you go up to? Well, I mean, what week if you're on a? We'll do it two different questions. If you're on a maintenance program, you don't have any problems, and you're using Athena IPM, what
Yeah.
week do you stop spraying Athena IPM?
Like week 2.
Week 2? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
same.
you know, but hey, listen, if you're like, hey, I've seen problems pop up in the past and I've had issues, I mean, you can spray that all the way. You know, there's no issues with testing or anything, you know. It's just, do you want
Yeah,
to spray your plants late in flower? Nobody wants to do that. You
yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean? But are you going to have residuals and are you going to pass testing? Yeah, absolutely, you're going to pass testing. You know what I mean? You're not going to have any issue, you know? But we always say, you got to find that sweet spot of when you can spray to, you know? And same thing, just because we say, hey, we stop as early as possible, if you're having issues, I'm not going to tell you to stop spraying.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to tell you don't spray till week 3, you know?
You need to spray when you have a problem, but ideally week 2 stop.
Yeah,
You know.
ideally with anything, you know what I mean? You want to cut it off as early as possible.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the thing, you know, plant count, how many plants do you have in your room? What's your airflow? What's all that stuff? I mean, there's guys that got to spray till week 6 or 7 in flower,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm not going to tell that guy that does what he does every single day to stop doing that, you know what I mean? But it's not ideal. You shouldn't have to do that if you're on your plants and you're stripping them early enough and you're releasing and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You shouldn't have to do that.
If you're having to do that, you need to be focusing on your environment and fixing the problems there before, you know.
Yeah, airflow is very, very, very important.
Are you guys using Powersi, and how are you guys using it?
Yeah, so we'll hit them with the foliar early in flower. We don't hit them religiously because there's not always times that we want to necessarily slow down the stretch.
Yeah.
You know, so if there's times where, hey, we over veg a little bit, the room wasn't ready. This is the thing, is we never chop our rooms early, right? We have rooms that go 70 plus days. You know, we don't grow, we don't flower based on hash, right? So we don't have any rooms that are dedicated to hash, right?
Yeah.
So if we flower a room and that room needs to go 72 days, the hash makers can come in at 65 days. When they scope and they say this is perfect, they can come in at 65 days and take the plants out. The rest of the plants are going to stay inside the room. We're not going to go and chop some room at 50 days because it makes the best blonde, prettiest hash, and then the same flowers end up on the shelf. We don't do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's also important to know too, you know, is we're taking these plants, you know. So if you have plants that, hey, maybe you took them over a week because they just weren't done enough, or you have one string in there that needs to go a little bit longer, then we'll hit them with some Powersi to slow down the stretch. You know, I mean, everyone knows it's amazing stuff. You hit them in flower. I mean, it makes plants stack. It's great stuff. You know, it's a great foliar to add. You know, but are we hitting Are we hitting LA Kush cake with it that stacks hard and produces almost 4 pounds of light? No. Are we hitting Mac with it? No. You know what I mean? Are we hitting some OGs that got over vegged a little bit, and I'm looking at them like, damn, they should have went at day 7 and not day 12? Yeah, we'll hit them for sure.
Yeah, as a foiler.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen?
For me, all that stuff, I've always been taught that most of that stuff, Regalia, Powersi, it always works better as a foliar spray. You know, us as growers, we're lazy. Of course, you want to just give it to them in the root and not have to deal with spraying. But I've always been taught, and I've always seen with my own eyes, that foliar spraying these things is, you know, it's like maintaining your plants. You know, it works. You know, it hits them right away.
So, have you seen a difference in yield from pro to blended, or or growth from pro to blended at all in flower?
No, you know, and it comes down to the same thing. You know, it comes down to the grower. You know, we don't run. Now I can tell you this: I have seen a difference compared to other lines. You know, when we did side by sides with blended and pro line, you know, our liquid line. I mean, we've seen incredible differences, quality wise, yield wise, but neck to neck, head to head. I mean, they're very similar. They're both really clean. They both go in clean, come out clean. You know, white ash. You know, flush easily. You know, but yeah, I can't say I see some huge difference. You know, but there's also, you know, if somebody overfed their plants with the powder line and then underfed or gave the right amount with the liquid line, of course you're going to have better results.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel a lot of, when I see people test things, right, and they use a new nutrient, they're like, oh, it didn't work that good, I didn't have that good of results. Well, if you did the same exact thing you were doing with your own nutrient line, you know, of course you didn't have the same results because everything's a little bit different. There's different ratios and there's different numbers, and plants uptake things differently, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a good baseline. You know where to start. You know what your plant's like, but there's always that little bit of tweaking higher, you know?
Let's talk CO2 real quick. Is there, I mean, do you adjust the CO2 in your flower rooms at all, as far as levels of parts per million, or do you equate CO2 levels of parts per million to your feed EC at all?
We usually just turn it down to 500 parts per million, like first day of week 7. That's pretty, like, we usually keep it right at like 12 to 1500 parts per million, and then fucking right at week 7, cut it down to 500. Day 1, week 8, it's off.
Okay, cool. So I love it. Simple.
Yeah.
So 12,
One other question I seen in here is somebody asking us if we could do a clone feed chart. Yeah, absolutely. So we shared exactly what we do for clones, but Athena would be more than happy for our customers to make a clone feed chart because we want you guys to have the same success we're having, for sure.
yeah, we'll do that. We'll make it. We'll have it up next week. So 12 to 1500 parts per million on the ppms, and then week 7 drop it to 500 parts per million.
Yeah, I mean, you can go and, if you wanted to, you can match your feedings and do all that stuff. You know what I mean? We've done it before, but 12 to 1500 seems to be the sweet spot. And another big thing that people always miss out on is CO2 in veg, CO2 early in flower. You know, I mean, one of the most important things and the time that you're going to see the best growth with CO2 is early in veg and early in flower. You know, I mean, it's.
Do you want to talk about the levels in veg that you guys like to maintain?
1500, you know, high, because you got to remember we're running our veggies really hot and humid, you know, and that's when CO2 works the best, you know. So we'll get those. I mean, that's how we got the name the Jungle Boys. You know, you walk into one of our rooms, you're like, holy shit, it's fucking jungle in here, you know. So you walk into our veg rooms, you're sweating, your glasses automatic. I can't even wear glasses inside the veg room, you know, because they automatically fog up, you know. And that's when you see that explosive growth is when you're hitting them early in veg and early in flower with CO2.
Nice.
Somebody asked cure time really quick. I just read cure time and flush time. So we flush for about 2 weeks, right? The last 2 weeks of growth is when we're flushing our plants, but we're also monitoring the inside of our cubes and we're dropping our feedings. So I mean, we can flush a plant and get it to a 0 EC in a day or 2, you know, but we also allow that plant to recover and take all that up, you know, and make sure that there's nothing inside of it. So the easy answer is 2 weeks of flush time, okay? And then
slowly dropping the EC.
Say that again?
But slowly dropping EC value.
Slowly dropping EC values as we pull our dry backs, as we're drying the plants out more. Right. Yeah. So later in flower, you want to take that water out of the plant. You don't want a bunch of water in the plant later in flower.
Yeah, you want to do longer dry backs.
Yes, but you also got to be careful with doing dry backs later in flower, because if there's a bunch of nutrient inside that cube, that's when you walk in the room and be like, why did my plants fry? Why do they look like shit? Why do I have all this burnt leaf on my plants? Because inside of your cube had a high EC and you were pulling it back and the plant didn't need water to uptake.
Yep. What spray are you using for foliar feeds or foliar sprays?
I mean, we don't really. I mean, if anything, you know,
So back in the day, you guys made the paint sprayer. What's that company? Graco. A lot of money.
Oh my god!
Like it's you guys. I mean, their revenue when you guys first dropped the paint sprayer back in the day went crazy. I mean, I know I switched from that, you know, that system.
That was a game changer for sure.
Yeah, but I think you guys were you the Dram 50 right now?
Yeah, now we just have Drams in all of our facilities. You know, they cost as much as a fucking Honda Civic. You know, they're expensive. You know, every time I see one, I'm like, damn, I just bought a Honda Civic right now.
Yeah,
you know, but you know, the time that you save and the being able to have a hose that you can go throughout the whole facility. Like here, we have it upstairs and a downstairs, so we have one upstairs. We only have 3 here, right? I think we have 3 here. We have one in the veg and moms,
one for
one for all
flower.
our flower rooms downstairs, and one for all our flower rooms upstairs. So we don't have an elevator here.
You got 3 on
So
the
we can't be
stairs.
carrying those things up and down the stairs.
Yeah. We had another question here. Curing process. You know, how long are you guys curing flower for? Temps, humidity?
Yeah, so same thing that we've always said, 60-60 is what we shoot for in the drying room. You know, 60 degrees, 60% humidity, you know, and depending on how the temperature and weather is outside and all that stuff, 14 to 16 days, the plants will sit inside there and hang, you know. So at that time, that's the start of the cure process, you know. And then from there, they get binned up in big bins, you know, where they'll sit for about 10 to 14 days,
In
you know.
bins.
Yeah, in bins,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
And then from there, they'll go to the trimmers, you know. So total cure time is 3 to 4 weeks, you know, counting drying and when they go into the bins, you know, which is plenty of time. You know, you got to remember, no one has done more testing than we have, and no one can tell you that those terpenes start to degrade. And anybody that tells you that a long cure is better, that's some bro science shit.
That's
Because I spend millions and millions of dollars on testing and sending cannabis to labs and telling them when is the peak time for terpenes. And once that cannabis is dry, every single day those terpenes degrade. So when people say, why don't you guys cure your flower? Well, we don't want to. It's like saying, why don't you open a banana and sit it on the table and eat it 3 weeks later? It's the same exact thing happened. You know what I mean? And the testing tells us this all the time, because when we send a fresh flower that's just been cured and just been trimmed to the lab, and it's 3% terpenes, right? And then 3 weeks later, it's 1% terpenes. You know, it's degrading. You know.
Yeah.
So I've been saying this for years. You know, cannabis is like fresh fruit. You know, I like my fruit fresh. I don't like my fruit, you know, 4 weeks later when it's been sitting in the bowl and it's all rotted out, and it's the same exact thing.
Ideally, how many weeks do you like to see it on your shelf?
I mean, so let's take, we hung it in our room, that took about 14 days, right? And then let's say 7 to 10 days by the time it gets binned up and trimmed up and processed and sent off to the lab, you know? So from the time it's actually dried, completely dried, 7 to 14 days.
Okay.
And that's as fast as possible. I mean, you can't do it any faster because it has to be trimmed. It has to be sent out for testing. You have to wait for the test results. Then once you get the test results, you package it, you sticker it, you put it out on the shelf. That's as fast as possible. Sure, we might be able to shave off a day or two, but with the legal market, that's about as fast as you can get it out.
Yeah, you've seen that delay with testing, probably about a week or so, 5 days.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if 3 days is like a really fast turnaround for the lab, but 5 days is about where all the labs are at right now.
Okay. Have any other questions?
Those are the main big ones.
I think those are the main big ones. You know, that was about an hour. Yeah.
So real quick, I just read another one, Unknown Prophet. What up, bro? EC and coco, what's the maximum you suggest? So if you caught the beginning of this, we talked about it, and we're going to replay it. It goes for this. When we talk about coco, when we talk about rockwool, they're both hydroponic mediums. They're both very similar. The only downfall about coco is you monitor the substrate. There's not a lot of tools out there like GrowSense that'll let you monitor the substrate. So with coco, you're better off getting a little bit of runoff with coco. And with that, as long as you're getting runoff, you can feed pretty high. You know, I'm talking clones. I'm not talking seeds. You know, of course, seeds need less EC, and you can feed them a lot less. But I'm talking an old clone that's been around forever. Most all of them can take a really high EC. You know, a 3.0 EC in coco, no issues whatsoever. You know, but if you're hitting a 3.0 in coco and you're letting your plants dry back a whole lot, then you're going to have a bunch of issues.
Seems like coco holds on to a little bit more than the rockwool.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why I'm saying make sure you have runoff if you're playing with higher EC and coco.
I know it's a little early, you know, as far as the LEDs go. You know, we've done a lot of testing on them, but how are you feeling how you feeling about LEDs versus HPS on that front? You know, I know it's kind of off the topic, but I'm getting a lot of
Yeah. I mean, I'm stoked about the LEDs for the shorter plants. You know, so that those short to medium plants, I'm super stoked about them. I think they can hold their own. You know, but for our bigger plants that stack all the way down and they grow bigger and I don't think the LED is where it's at for us. But we grow so many varieties that we could literally have varieties that we just grow under LEDs. You know,
yeah.
so a lot of our shorter and medium sized plants. Uh, all those plants are going into our LED rooms. We had a 77 light DE Lux room at Cudahy, and we pulled those down. We're putting up LEDs because we were stoked with the results, and we figured, hey, we can grow our shorter to medium plants here, which we have a ton of, you know, and that's going to be the plan for our LEDs right now. Is we're going to focus on our short and our medium plants will be growing under LEDs.
Nice. No, it's good to know. And what do you think? We do get a lot of inbound about double stacking on flower. What is your opinion on the efficiencies of double stacked flower? And would you guys ever think about doing a double stacked flower, and why?
Oh, we've thought about it for sure. I mean, there's been many a times that I've walked in a room like, dude, we should double stack this room, you know? Um, it just becomes it comes down to quality, right? When you start having things that aren't in front of your face every single day, the things on the top kind of get forgotten about.
Yeah.
You know, it's not right in front of your face every single day. So when you're doing it on such a large scale, you know, if you know, I had a garage and I had, you know, 8 lights in it and I was double stacking, I'm there every single day, I'm working, sure. You know, but
Yeah.
when you're on a large scale and things get put on top and they're not in front of your face, a lot of times things get neglected, you know. But if you're going watt for watt and you're growing a large plant and you're double stacking and you're putting LED and LED, but you could do the same thing with an HPS plant and grow a bigger plant and get, you know, I have to see the numbers. I still haven't seen anything that fully convinces me quality wise that double stacking is where it's at, quality
Yeah.
and quantity wise, you know. But listen, I'm open to anything. You know, like I'm not gonna say I would never do a double stack because next week I'm going to do a double stack. You know, I'm not saying that I am, but I probably will. You know, but right now I haven't seen anything that says we need to go double stack.
Yeah.
You know,
You need to have the facility for it too.
Yeah.
You can't do a double stack in a 12-foot ceiling room. I mean, it's just going to make your life so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That's pretty much it. Hey guys, I think that's how you guys doing. Good.
Good. Appreciate everybody coming on here. We're gonna post this, right, so everyone could.
No, it's cool. Like, this was invaluable information. I know it's big to, you know, for a cultivator, you know, like you guys, to be just giving this information out to the masses is huge. And I think a lot of people, that's why you're the Jungle Boys. A lot of people respect that. You know, I know that I have my life, as far as my businesses, my grows and everything, have come a long way since I started following you many years ago, and just I know a lot of people appreciate it, and it means a lot. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. See ya.
All right.